to start in Nehemiah. We just covered this chapter 7. Nehemiah is a good book, a good encouraging book, showing how the people of God, one, led by a committed leader, one who was sensitive to the things of God, committed, dedicated to the purposes of God, courageous enough to take on this responsibility and lead God's people in the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And so we have various movements through the book of Nehemiah where we see how people worked collectively to achieve something that God wanted them to achieve. And there was one specific thing that was stated in this verse 7 of chapter 7. And I don't know if I got these right. Actually, I don't think that's verse 7. I think that's going to be verse 1. But Nehemiah 7, let me just double check that so I don't have you guys going. So, of course, you can refer back to it. Cut and paste program. I think I might have caught it this time. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not going to bother with it. It is chapter 7. But it reads, Then it was, when the wall was built, and I had hung the doors, when the gatekeepers, the singers, and the Levites had been appointed, that I gave charge of Jerusalem to my brother Hanani, and Hananiah the leader of the citadel, for he was a faithful man and feared God more than many. That should be verses 1 and 2 of Nehemiah 7. I want to zero in on the fact that the work had been done to this point. We got completion. It's now time to hand off the responsibility of leadership for their going forward. Nehemiah selects his own brother, which says there was close personal observation. He got a chance to see this man working alongside in this process of rebuilding. And that the fact that he was close, the fact that they worked and toiled together, gave him that opportunity to see into his life. And then he referred to him as a faithful man. And then secondly, he pointed out the fact that he feared God, which is very, very key. I'll tell people, and I've said this over the years, if I can get in touch with the fact that somebody fears God, will respond to the directives of the Holy Spirit, there is a certain level of comfort there in working with that individual than working with someone who's driven by their own inclinations. So here's a man that he's watched who feared God and a man who is faithful. Now, if I had a title for the message, you know I'm not big on titles, but for today's conversation, I would say faithfulness, or the house that faithfulness built. The house that faithfulness built. Then I want to talk a little bit about faithful people as we get started. And these are things that I think they're good to note. I'm thinking this is one of those messages that should be in your treasury as we go forward, particularly as God moves us into this new dimension, into this new space of ministry. There's going to be the responsibility, there's going to be the need to identify responsible people, to spread out the responsibility of doing the work of ministry. And as such, we need faithfulness. We need faithful people. We need to be able to identify them as Nehemiah identified these that he mentioned here. We need to identify faithful people and then put them into place to be able to serve, providing empowerment and tools, providing structure and direction. But there's a few things about faithful people that I want to mention. And as a leader, I can tell you I've been able to identify them. And as the years have gone by, I can identify them quicker than before. Years ago, when I first got started, it took a long time of observation, a long time of seeing where people were. And then sometimes they would trick you because it would look like they were faithful. Then all of a sudden they'd fall off. And then you scratching your head and you're wondering, now, how did I buy into that? But I've learned and I've grown to be able to identify the characteristics of faithful people. And the first thing that I recognize is that faithful people, they believe. They believe in the mission. They are convinced. They are sold. And as a consequence, they are unwavering. But the first thing is, do you believe? Do you believe in the mission? Do you believe in what God is saying? Do you believe in what God is establishing? Once you get to that place of believing, you can progress in being committed as a faithful person. Faithful people can always be found in place. That's number two. Faithful people can always be found in place. You know, I'm real particular about how I structure my space, how I structure things that I do. Miss Gloria will tell you that I like things to have their place and I want it in that place so that I don't have to think and reprocess. I know that certain things are in this desk drawer. I got two drawers. I actually added two desk drawers to the desk that I'm sitting at because I needed to have some certain things in a certain place. So when it was time to do some stuff, I could open this drawer and know that I got what I need. I got my eye drops in this drawer. Now that the brace is gone, I won't need these as much, but I got my picks in this drawer. There are certain things that are here in this drawer. If I go in the drawer in the front, there are some other things that are always there. Faithful people are always found in the right place to be prompted, to be released, to do what they were created to do in the time and place that they were created to do it. Faithful people. They are trustworthy, number three. Trustworthy and dependable. You know that they're going to always be in that space to consistently do. And so now you have trust in them. And there's a certain peace and comfort that comes, particularly with a senior leader. If you have people that are following or leaders that are managing other areas of a mission, there's nothing like having people who are trustworthy that you can say, you know what, I can go to sleep and know that it's going to be all right. Now, one thing that I have to say about this beautiful church called Harvest Church Plainfield, I bragged about it over the years. I tell folk, I can leave town, and not many pastors have this testimony, but I can leave town and be assured that there's certain aspects of ministry that's going to go on without me having to talk to anybody prior to. Sometimes they don't even know I've gone. They show up on the Sunday and realize I'm not present, and they spring into action and do what they know to do. These are faithful people who are trustworthy and dependable. I won't name names, I'll get in trouble, but I can tell you there are many. There are many, not just one or two, not just a few, but many. And I'm blessed and I'm thankful to God that we have these kinds of people. I'm praying and I'm encouraging you to step into this place of being faithful so that we can accelerate and move forward the purposes of God to be able to touch this world, causing something or someone to become better because of this family, this community, this church. Faithful people are not moved. This is another point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not moved or deterred by trouble or changing conditions. You know, anybody can rock and roll when the road is smooth. Anybody can be involved, attached, and committed when everything is going easy. But only faithful people have that capacity, that determined capacity to endure personal discomfort for the sake of the greater mission. They're not deterred by trouble, not deterred by changing conditions. And in fact, when it gets uncomfortable, it's almost as though they dig in, they double down, and they'll often be verbal and say it out loud. I'm not moved, I'm not moving. Nehemiah was blessed to have his brother and Hananiah there working with him. And I'm sure the things that I've identified in faithful people, I'm sure he saw these things in them, and it provided comfort, it provided peace. And I'll tell you something else it provides. When you are weak, when you are worn as the leader, when you look around you and you see faithful people who remain on their posts, faithful people who refuse to be deterred, will not be moved by changing conditions. When you see that, any amount of weakness, any desire that you may have had to throw your hands in the air, all of a sudden, all of that dissipates and it just re-energizes you. It gives you the ability to move forward. I'm moved by those who have hung in there as we have dealt with this pandemic and all the shifts and movements, as we have had this high level of uncertainty that we've all had to deal with. I can look around me, and more than just the two that Nehemiah was able to identify, I can look around me and see faithfulness all in this ministry. I'm blessed to see the number of you who have RSVP'd and those of you who have come aboard in the middle and committed to walking with this work. It's something to be recognized and something to be celebrated and something to give praise to God for, because yes, we make the commitment to be faithful, but it is God then that kicks in with grace that helps you to stand when you would otherwise fail. Faithful people. Uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to keep doing for the sake of the greater mission. That's a faithful person. You may not even like what's going on. You definitely don't like the season. Don't always understand everything that's going on. You got questions yourself, but you're faithful because you started out with believing that it's God. It was God. It is his mission. Ultimately, it's not about us, but it's about him and his purposes, enduring personal discomfort for the sake of the greater mission. And then faithful people are respectful of the influence that they've been given. And that's a major deal. You know, when God gives you this grace and stands you in the midst of people, there's a real serious responsibility that comes with that level of influence. Faithful people come to the place of recognizing and then respecting the influence that they have. They don't play with it. They're always mindful of the fact that they themselves have become a model and sometimes a target. Because you have those who are unfaithful, those who are not committed, who always want to push faithful people off of their position and bring them lower into a space of mediocrity where there is no endurance when times are tough. There is no commitment when there's not clarity. There's always that. But faithful people understand that there are others that are watching me. There are others who will model after me. There's others who will follow because I followed. There are others who will stand because I stood. There are others who would see me silence and close my mouth when I don't understand, but continue to walk. Why? Because I believe. Faithful people are respectful of the influence they've been given. God honors that stuff, let me tell you. So they manage their influence responsibly. You grow, in fact, when you recognize it, and those of you who know that when you have that level of influence, particularly within a faith community, you know your words matter. And sometimes it's not your words. It can be body language. It can be your response. People read your face. There's always people in the room who will look to the influence to see, well, how are you going to respond to what Bishop just said? How are you going to respond to the plan that was just laid out? How are you going to respond to the report that was received? There's always those who are faithful, people of influence, that become that people will look to. to make a determination. Am I going to jump on and jump off? Am I going to be consistent or inconsistent? Am I going to become faithful? I'm saying that faithful people have the ability to become contagious and infectious and cause faithfulness to mount in a community. I'm calling to the faithful today. That's my call. I'm entreating those of you who are faithful and you know who you are. I'm entreating you to consider the role and responsibility that you've been given by God to be able to stand with us in this faith community. And as we move forward, let's reproduce after our own kind. Let's help people to come up to levels of faithfulness that we might all experience the richness of walking out a mission that is pleasing to God. The parable Jesus told in Matthew 25:20 about the talents. He had the one who received 5 talents. He came and brought his other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5. Look, I gained 5 more. He doubled what the Lord had given him. Verse 21 says, his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Now enter into the joy of your Lord. My goodness. I like the idea that I am in divine partnership with God, that he has given me this privilege to serve, giving me the privilege to touch his eternal work, and that he is dependent on me to be on my job, that he's dependent on me to be faithful, trustworthy, dependable, respectful, responsible. I like that idea. And apparently this one with the 5 talents got in touch with that as well and decided, you know what, when it comes time for me to give my report, I don't care what the others did. There were others. One had a few. But me, I've predetermined that I am going to, number one, I'm going to believe. And my belief is going to lead me to some actions where I'll be faithful. And the Lord said, well, I like faithful people. I like faithful people. And in fact, I'm looking for faithful people. And when I find faithful people, I put more responsibility in their hands because I can depend on them. I can rest in the fact that they are going to deliver. They're going to be there. They're going to do. When they're uncomfortable, they're going to do. When they don't see it all, they're going to do. Listen, let me tell you something. Following God and following God's directives. God is unfair in this now. He don't tell you everything. He leaves a lot of things hidden away, a lot of things unknown, unclear. Everybody wants clarity. Everybody, give me the report. Give me the update on where we at. What are we doing here? What are we doing there, man? My God, if I got $1 for every time I heard that through this pandemic, I could retire with a hefty amount of funds. When, where? I don't know. I'm following God, and I follow God long enough to know that wherever he's leading me, wherever he's leading me to go, that at the end of the deal, that it's going to be better for me at the end than it was in the beginning. So God is looking for the faithful, those who can follow, those who can endure, those who are not moved by discomfort, who are not moved by changing conditions, those who will stay in place and continue to model what it means to be faithful. There are 4 reasons why God celebrates the faithful. Number 1, faithful are the glue that helps to keep things together. Things could come apart, but the faithful just hang in there. We got an incredible core at Harvest. Pastors and I, we had lunch last week, first time we've gathered since the pandemic, and we just enjoyed some time with each other, some laughter, some stories, some reflections, talking about the present and the future, both personal as well as for ministry. Just wonderful. We took a nice photograph. You may have seen it on social media, or actually it was in the Connected this week. Beautiful photograph, beautiful. And I'm thinking here, I forget the years that the that the Joneses have been, I think, about 15 years or more. Everybody else longer than that, that one group. You've heard me say it before, but it's worth restating. No insurrection. Nobody's competing. Everybody's in it for the right reason. Faithful, a faithful team of people whose hearts are to serve God, whose hearts are to make sure that the people of God are cared for and nourished and taught and encouraged. My goodness. They've been the glue that's helped to keep it together through the pandemic. They've been the glue that's helped to keep it together for all of these years. So God celebrates the faithful because they are the glue. Number two, they are most influential. And I mentioned it, but just to restate it on this list of 4 things. They are influential. You watch them, you admire them, you aspire to be like them. You watch them through the processes, and they remain faithful, steadfast, unmovable, just standing right there in the grace of God. Number 3, God celebrates the faithful because they are, listen, if you're not faithful, you want to move into that space because the faithful are the reason the mission achieves success. It's the faithful. It works because of faithful people. It moves forward and advances because of faithful people. Lives are changed, nations are touched because of faithful people. Without the faithful people, none of this would happen. So, throughout Scripture, the faithful are mentioned, the faithful are highlighted, the faithful are recognized, the faithful are celebrated because the faithful are the ones that make it happen. And number 4, the faithful are the model of Christ. It is his faithfulness that brought us salvation. It's his faithfulness that brings us healing. It's his faithfulness that brings us deliverance. It's his faithful that brings us peace. It's his faithful that makes life whole. It gives us joy that provides strength, peace that surpasses understanding. Jesus made it possible. He was faithful. Are you faithful? You faithful, you model God. You model Christ. I'm closed with the 2 Timothy 2:2. There are many scriptures that I could have hit with this one, but these I want to pull out because they speak directly to my message today. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. He said, and the things, Paul talking to Timothy, that you have heard from me among many witnesses, commit these things, or commit these to faithful men and women who will be able to teach others also. Faithful produce faithful. Faithfulness produces faithfulness. So, what is he telling Timothy? And what should we be saying to each other? Replicate yourself. Replicate yourself. Talk to the people that may not be faithful and explain to them why you are faithful. In your testimonies, in your witness, in your engaging, in your sharing, sometimes they need to understand why you stand. Yeah, number 1, because you believe. And when you believe, you can be faithful. Filled with faith is to be faithful. So I want to celebrate you guys today. I want to celebrate you for your faithfulness, for your commitment. I believe God will also celebrate you in his presence. I want to encourage us all to keep on keeping on, keep on pressing in God. Amen. God bless y'all today.